8 minutes after entering a mountain tunnel in Austria, a train full of passengers suddenly stopped, 600 meters inside the tunnel, in total darkness. Then the smoke started. Thick black smoke pouring into the carriage. Inside the train were skiers, tourists and families heading up the mountain for a day in the snow. Even a 19-year-old world champion snowboarder.
The Austrian authorities have not told us how many people are still up there, and they told us they do not have the names of the people that are still on top of the mountain.
When the doors finally opened, the passengers ran, almost all of them in the same direction, and almost all of them died. But 8 people made a completely different choice, one that went against every human instinct. One that went against every human instinct. Instead of running away from the fire, they ran toward it, and somehow, against all odds, they survived. This is the story of the Kaprun disaster of 2000, one of the deadliest train fires in modern history. The Gletscherbahn Kaprun 2 was the kind of engineering marvel that turned a remote Austrian glacier into a world-class ski destination. Opened in 1974 and upgraded in 1993, this funicular railway carried passengers up a 30-degree slope, almost entirely through a mountain tunnel over 3 kilometers long, at 25 kilometers per hour. On the morning of November 11th, 161 passengers and 1 conductor climbed aboard for the ascent. Most were German and Austrian tourists. Some were families. One was Sandra Schmidt, a 19-year-old reigning world champion freestyle skier. At 9:02 a.m., the train departed from the valley station and began its climb into the mountain. Within minutes, they would be trapped inside one of the deadliest rail disasters in Austrian history. The train was 8 minutes into its journey, roughly 600 meters inside the tunnel, when it unexpectedly halted. Not a gradual slowdown, a sudden, complete stop in near total darkness. Smoke, coming from the front cabin.
The first unusual thing I noticed was the smoke. It was like a cigarette that you put down for a moment.
Fire on board!
But the catastrophe was already becoming irreversible. The fire had begun burning through a high-voltage power cable running along the tunnel wall. Within moments, it severed. The power went out, not just for the train, but for the entire ski resort above. And then came the second, more devastating problem. The doors. The doors on this funicular were hydraulically operated, kept closed by hydraulic pressure. With the power gone, the pressure dropped. The doors locked shut. The conductor tried to force them, failed. The passengers tried, failed again. They were sealed inside a filling smoke chamber, with no phone signal in the tunnel and no way to call for help. The fire had a specific origin. Inside that front conductor's cab sat a small electric fan heater, one designed for domestic home use, not for a moving vehicle. A design fault caused the unit to overheat. The heating element broke free from its mount, jammed against its own casing, and caught fire. A slow hydraulic fluid leak nearby ignited. The lines melted and fed the flames further. Eventually, the conductor managed to force the doors open manually, and in that moment, the passengers did exactly what every human instinct tells you to do. They ran away from the fire. They ran upward, toward the top station, toward the Alpencenter, toward what felt like safety. It was the deadliest decision they could have made.
And what these people did in taking the decision to move upwards was to move up with the smoke, with the toxic gases and the heat.
What they didn't know was how fire behaves in tunnels. This tunnel was built on a steep 30-degree incline. It was over 3 kilometers long, enclosed, and effectively sealed at both ends. In those conditions, a fire doesn't just burn, it creates a chimney. Hot air rises. In a sealed inclined tunnel, hot air rises fast, and it drags everything with it. The smoke, the toxic gases, the carbon monoxide, and the heat itself, which later estimates placed above 1,000 degrees Celsius near the peak of the blaze. The tunnel had become a blast furnace. Fresh oxygen was being pulled in from the lower entrance at the base, feeding the fire, while superheated gases and smoke accelerated upward at lethal velocity. The passengers running toward the Alpine Centre were running directly into that current, a wall of poison and heat moving toward them faster than they could flee it. Firefighters who arrived at the top found the scene almost incomprehensible. The conductor, the passengers, even the sole traveller on a second descending train caught in the tunnel above, all dead. Not from burns, from carbon monoxide and asphyxiation. Some were found still standing. At the rear of the train, in the very last compartment, a group of passengers were doing something the rest weren't. They were listening to one man. His name was Thorsten Grädler, a German passenger who had trained as a volunteer firefighter. In the chaos, while others panicked, he was thinking. He understood chimney effect. He knew the smoke and heat were racing upward. He knew the only breathable air was being pulled in from below, from the base of the mountain at the tunnel's lower entrance. Going down wasn't running toward the fire. Going down was following the oxygen. But first, they had to get out of the train. The windows were made of shatter-resistant acrylic plexiglass, built specifically not to break. In the worsening smoke, Grädler and the others found a heavy ski pole. They hammered at the window, over and over with everything they had, until finally it gave. 12 people climbed through the broken window. 8 of them made it all the way out of the tunnel alive. What followed was a near-blind descent along narrow maintenance catwalks beside the track, passing through the burning tunnel. The heat was ferocious. The darkness was almost total. But the air near the ground, drawn toward the base of the mountain, remained just breathable enough. One by one, they emerged from the tunnel entrance at the valley floor, burned, shaking, alive. Every single person who ran upward did not make it out. 155 people died inside that tunnel on November 11th, 2000. Among them, Sandra Schmidt, world freestyle ski champion, Josef Schauper, a 7-time Deaflympics medalist alongside his teammates, 92 Austrians, 37 Germans, victims from Japan, the United States, Slovenia, and beyond. The funicular was never reopened, replaced within a year by a gondola lift. The tunnel was sealed permanently in 2012. A criminal trial began in 2002 involving 16 accused, company officials, government inspectors, Transport Ministry representatives. In 2004, every single one of them was acquitted. Insufficient evidence of criminal negligence. The manufacturer of the heater was cleared separately in 2007. A civil settlement reached in 2008 paid €13.9 million to 451 claimants. No one ever went to prison. But perhaps the most unsettling legacy of Kaprun isn't the legal outcome. It's this: the safety codes the train was built to meet didn't even account for the systems installed during its 1993 upgrade. A domestic space heater, a hydraulic fluid leak, no smoke detectors, fire extinguishers locked in a sealed compartment passengers couldn't reach. The disaster wasn't just a tragedy. It was a long list of overlooked details that, one by one, nobody caught. And what the 8 survivors understood in those desperate seconds in the back of that train is now taught in emergency response programs around the world. Kaprun changed everything. Modern funiculars now carry fire detection systems, lit evacuation routes, and emergency procedures built around one hard truth: that instinct alone may not save you. May those 155 people rest in peace. And if this story intrigued you, be sure to watch another one.